She ain't flopped. She immediately, Breanna Stewart, a big gal. Look, she ain't throw her hands up. See, there's a big difference. Watch this one here. Look, she flopped. That was a half
season game yet, and it is already on fire before confetti from opening night even falls. Before a single stat line gets logged, before anyone has played a game that actually counts, the most talked about moment of the entire 2026 season has already happened. And it did not happen in the finals. It did not happen on a Sunday night showcase broadcast. It happened in a preseason game at the Barclays Center on a Saturday afternoon in late April, when a fan sitting 17 rows up pulled out their phone, hit record, and captured something that the official broadcast cameras completely missed. What they caught has now been watched millions of times. It has been broken down frame by frame, slow motion by slow motion, and has landed directly on the desk of the WNBA league office, where serious conversations are now happening about accountability, player safety, and what kind of league the WNBA wants to be in 2026.
This is a slow motion version of it. So as you guys can see here, just look at this. Boom, bro. Boom. Just completely look at Breanna Stewart's face. And this is who we got in charge of negotiating the CBAs. Look at this. Like, how do something like this happens? Always.
Right in the center of all of it is a woman who just came back from 9 months of grueling rehabilitation. Sophie Cunningham. Before we get any further, if you're new here and you love basketball drama, WNBA storylines, and the kind of content that mainstream sports media refuses to touch, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell. We don't miss a single story. So, let's go back to Saturday, April 25th, 2026. The Indiana Fever and the New York Liberty are playing the first preseason game of the 2026 season at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Both teams came into this game with something to prove. The Fever came in fully healthy for the first time in what feels like forever. Caitlin Clark was back at full strength after her brutal 2025 season that ended with a groin and ankle injury that limited her to just 13 games. And Sophie Cunningham returned from a torn MCL that wiped out her entire 2025 playoff run. This was supposed to be a feel-good preseason moment, a celebration of two of the most exciting players in the sport returning to the floor together. And for a few minutes, it was exactly that. But then Breanna Stewart stepped into Sophie Cunningham's path, and nothing about what happened next felt accidental. Here is what the official broadcast never showed. The cameras were wide. The announcers were relaxed. The game was being presented to the viewing public like routine preseason basketball. But fan footage, raw, unfiltered, shot from the stands, caught what was really happening at floor level. And that footage went viral within hours.
You guys see that? Did y'all? And now she throwing up her hands. She's throwing up her hands like she ain't just damn me. Boom. Lead forward. Dirty play there. That was a dirty play. Now, it looked like the referee actually might caught this.
It shows is Breanna Stewart, former MVP, two-time WNBA champion, one of the greatest players in league history, stepping directly into Sophie Cunningham's path, not to set a legal screen, not to establish defensive position, but to initiate contact. She projects her upper body forward, extends her arm away from her torso, and drives her elbow directly into Sophie Cunningham's chest. Then, and this is the part that set the internet absolutely ablaze, she immediately throws both hands up in the air and looks directly at the referee, playing the innocent party, like she had no idea what just happened. Like Sophie Cunningham somehow walked into an elbow at full speed. That reaction, that immediate theatrics after the contact, is what turned a controversial basketball play into a full-blown national conversation. Because when you watch it in slow motion, frame by frame, none of it looks accidental. Not even close. Now, here is what nobody in mainstream media is telling you about Sophie Cunningham's response. Because this is where the story stops being about a cheap shot and starts being about something much more powerful. Sophie Cunningham did not go to the bench. She did not look at her coach with questioning eyes. She didn't wave the training staff over. She absorbed that elbow, stood up straight, reset her stance, and went right back to work. No theatrics. No hands in the air. No looking to the referee for validation. She did what enforcers do. She planted her feet, did her job, and moved to the next play. The contrast between how Sophie Cunningham handled that moment and how the play was initially initiated is so stark, so visually undeniable, that it tells you everything you need to know about the character and mentality of this Fever team in 2026. They are not a team that absorbs punishment and quietly moves on, but they're also not a team that performs for cameras. They respond physically, purposefully on the court, and that response came hard and fast for the rest of that basketball game. Sophie Cunningham spent the remainder of the Fever Liberty preseason game making every single New York Liberty player deeply uncomfortable. She was setting screens so massive, so perfectly timed, so completely uncompromising that Liberty defenders were leaving their feet just trying to brace for impact. She was physically clearing space for Caitlin Clark with a level of conviction and intensity that you simply do not see from most players in a preseason game. There was one sequence. Caitlin Clark drives toward the paint. A Liberty defender closes in from the blind side at full speed. And Sophie Cunningham comes flying in from the weak side and sets a screen so hard, so perfectly positioned, so utterly unafraid that the Liberty defender completely loses her footing. Cunningham didn't flop. She didn't beg for a whistle. She set the screen, held her ground, and moved on. That is an enforcer doing her job in real time. And the Barclays Center crowd felt every single moment of it. Now, let's talk about what Sophie Cunningham coming back healthy actually means to this Indiana Fever team in 2026. Because you cannot fully understand the stakes of this controversy without understanding her value. She tore her MCL in August of 2025, 9 months of rehabilitation. Anyone who has been through a serious knee injury understands the mental and physical toll, the doubt, the setbacks, the 3 a.m. moments where you genuinely don't know if the joint will ever feel the same again. But she came back. She re-signed with Indiana on a 1-year deal worth $665,000. She could have taken more money somewhere else, played a lighter role, taken an easier path. She signed with the Fever because she wanted to be exactly where she was on that Saturday afternoon, standing between Caitlin Clark and anyone who wanted to test her. And in the first preseason game of the 2026 season, coming off a torn MCL, she went 5-4- from the field, scored 13 points, and posted a staggering +8 rating. That is not a player easing her way back. That is a player announcing she is back with a mission. And here's a question every team in the WNBA should be asking themselves right now. After everything you just saw, the elbow, the viral crowd footage, Sophie Cunningham refusing to back down, and then setting game-changing screens the entire second half. Do you really want to be the team that tries to bully the Indiana Fever in 2026? Because the evidence from one single preseason game suggests the answer is a very clear no. Caitlin Clark is entering her third WNBA season. She averaged 19, 2 points, and led the entire league with 8, 4 assists per game in her rookie year. Her 2025 season was cut short by injuries. Now she is coming back healthy, hungry, and with a full year of additional professional preparation in her body. And now she has Sophie Cunningham fully recovered and patrolling the perimeter next to her. Every single team on Indiana's schedule is going to feel that combination this year. The message from Saturday's game was simple. The Fever are not here to survive the season. They are here to win a championship. Now let's talk about the league office, because this is where the story shifts from viral controversy to potential historic significance. According to multiple reports surfacing from sources close to league operations, WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has been made aware of the fan footage from the Fever Liberty game, and the league is treating the incident seriously. In commissioner language, that is not a throwaway PR statement. It is a procedural signal. It means the footage has been formally reviewed, the officials' reports have been pulled, and a disciplinary conversation is actively happening inside league headquarters. The specific figure being circulated among sources close to the situation, a 5-game suspension for Breanna Stewart to start the 2026 regular season. Let that number sink in, because the basketball implications are enormous. Breanna Stewart is not just a New York Liberty's best player. She is a connective tissue of their entire offensive system. She is a spacing threat that opens driving lanes, the high post hub that drives ball movement, and the anchor of their second unit. She is the one player whose presence fundamentally changes everything for opposing defenses. Without her, the Liberty's offensive identity shifts dramatically. Teams can pack the paint, switch everything, and force isolation basketball. A 5-game suspension is not just a setback. It is a structural challenge for a team still chasing a championship identity. And the Fever, already being viewed by analysts as one of the most dangerous teams entering 2026, only get more dangerous while Stewart sits. But there is a dimension here that goes beyond basketball strategy and win-loss records. If the league does impose significant suspension specifically tied to the contact with Sophie Cunningham, it signals something much larger, a line being drawn. It would mean the WNBA is formally saying that the era of unchecked physical targeting, especially involving star players and veteran matchups, is no longer acceptable. It is a message about accountability, safety, and the direction of the league moving forward. That message would echo across every locker room in the league. Because if you have watched the last 2 seasons of WNBA basketball closely, you know there's been a pattern: veterans testing younger stars, physical plays that walk right up to the line, and sometimes cross it, with referees swallowing the whistle and letting it slide. The Fan. Footage from Saturday feels different because it was caught at floor level in slow motion, completely unfiltered, and it made that pattern undeniable in a way league officials simply cannot dismiss. Now here is where the story gets genuinely complicated. Because Breanna Stewart is not a villain. She is one of the greatest players in WNBA history. A champion, a former league MVP, an Olympic gold medalist, and an enormously important figure in the league's long-term cultural identity. She is a player who carried the torch for women's basketball for years before the current era of explosive growth began. The last thing the WNBA needs heading into its most commercially significant season ever, with Caitlin Clark healthy, with all 44 Indiana Fever games being broadcast nationally, with an entirely new fan base watching every move the league makes, is a narrative that positions 2 of its biggest stars as enemies in a media war about physicality and discipline. That is not good for Breanna Stewart. That is not good for the New York Liberty. And frankly, that is not good for anyone who loves the sport and wanted to keep growing. But sometimes the most defining moments in sports are not carefully planned. Sometimes they happen in a half second of poor judgment in a preseason game, and then a fan with a smartphone captures it from 17 rows up, posts it online, and suddenly the entire basketball world is watching on loop and demanding answers. Kathy Engelbert has a decision to make, and it is one of the most consequential decisions of her tenure as commissioner. If she hands down a real suspension, she validates the argument that players' safety is actually a priority, not just a press release talking point. She earns credibility with a massive new fan base that came to this league specifically to watch Caitlin Clark and wants to see that investment protected. She sends a message that 2026 is a new era of accountability. But if the league quietly lets this go, if there is no meaningful disciplinary action, if the footage gets explained away as accidental contact and the suspension rumor turns out to be just speculation, that silence will be even louder than the video itself. Because the entire basketball world saw what that footage showed, and they're watching now to see how the league responds. Before we close this out, we need to come back one more time to Sophie Cunningham, because in a story that started with a viral elbow, the woman who took the hit is the one who ended up looking like the most composed, the most credible, and the most important player on the floor. She did not complain. She did not escalate. She did not perform for cameras or demand justice on social media. She played basketball. She played it hard. She played it fearlessly. And she played at a level that reminded everyone watching why the Indiana Fever signed her in the first place. She came back from one of the hardest injuries in professional basketball with her game intact, her body recovered, and her mentality sharper than ever. And now she is back in an Indiana Fever uniform, screening for Caitlin Clark, protecting the franchise, and apparently living rent-free in the heads of opposing veterans before the regular season has even started. The Indiana Fever are entering 2026 with Caitlin Clark fully healthy for the first time in years, with Sophie Cunningham operating at her ceiling, with every game on national television, and with the entire basketball world watching. This is not a team hoping for a good season. This is a team with championship expectations. And after what happened at Barclays Center, after the viral footage, the reaction the potential lead discipline, and Sophie Cunningham refusing to blink, you have to wonder if the rest of the WNBA is finally starting to understand something. The Fever are coming, not eventually. Now, the season hasn't even started yet, and it already feels historic. Subscribe if you want to be here for every single moment of it, because the story is nowhere near over. It's just getting started.